Hey there, it's Dad, and welcome to the next segment of Dad, I Want to Hear Your Story. So, in our last video, we talked about beginnings and things about my life, and in this one, we are talking about work and career. So, I did actually fill in some of the details here, so I'll use them as prompts to kind of guide me through what I'm going to say. So, first question. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Well, I don't actually remember anything specific. I remember one time in like the third grade, the teacher's like, "What do you want to do?" I have no idea what I said. Some people are like third grade now. Oh, I want to be a vet. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a teacher. Who knew? I don't think when I was in the third grade I knew that I wanted to be in IT because that didn't exist, right? Computers and all that stuff didn't exist. So I don't think I had any specific career aspirations when I was a kid. Um, I know that as I was going through my high school years, I knew I didn't want to do like manual labor. My father was a blue collar manual labor guy, and I knew that was probably something that I didn't want to do, but you know, I didn't really know specifically. So, what was your first job? How old were you, and how much were you paid? So, my very first job, the first memory that I have of working, I might have been in the fifth grade, maybe sixth grade, and my mom worked at this like convenience store slash deli slash restaurant thing down in Newton on Spring Street. And the owner would give me, I think, $1 or $2 an hour to sweep the floors and wipe down the tables, and he had me like clean things in the back. I remember I did it, but I don't remember how long that lasted. It might have just been like a one-off thing. He, invited me down and I got to make a couple of bucks. Um, but my first like real job that I had, and this was in elementary school, so fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, all the way up into high school, I delivered newspapers. So I would get up 7 days a week at 6:30 in the morning, maybe about 6:30, and I would deliver the Star Ledger in the morning. And then when I got home in the afternoon, I would deliver the New Jersey Herald. So I had, actually, even before that, there was a free newspaper called, I think it was called the Forum. It was like a free newspaper, and I would deliver that, and I would get paid just to deliver those free newspapers. So for my earliest memories of working, I had newspaper routes, and then from newspaper routes, I went to the Kitty and Teen, which was a children's clothing store on Spring Street in Newton, and I worked there for maybe a year or two. And then from there, I worked on a farm over a summer. Actually, I worked there for a whole year. I started in like the spring, and then I worked until the following year. And then from there, I went to Package and Wrap in Sparta, and I am pretty sure those were all of the jobs that I had. In the middle of one of those, I remember there was a chiropractor that lived around the corner from where I grew up. His name was Doc Norris, and he was putting an extension on his house, and he paid me $5 an hour to help him build this addition, which means I had to, literally dig a foundation and use a jackhammer to break apart the concrete and stuff like that, and to dig the footings. And I helped him do all this stuff, and then load everything into a truck and drive it to get rid of all the dirt. It was backbreaking labor, and I made $5 an hour, and I thought I was the cat's meow for getting that much money. It was incredible. How many jobs have you had during your lifetime? So, Paper Routes, Kitty and Teen, Frieden Farms, Doc Norris, Package and Wrap. During college, when I got out of the Army, so that was before the Army, went into the Army. When I got out of the Army, I worked at a Georgia Pacific paper mill in Toledo, Oregon, doing asbestos removal. That was a short-lived job. Then when I came back home, and I went to college, I worked at a TCBY yogurt shop in Edison, New Jersey, and I worked there for 2 years. And then when I went to Chicago to finish, I actually started out with two jobs. I worked at a Walmart pharmacy and I got a job. It's called a bar back. It was like working in a bar at a nightclub called Cody Coyotes. And my job was to stock the bar with beer and haul, beer from the refrigerator to the front, from the back to the front, and carry out empties. It was just a grunt job. And I couldn't go to school, work at the pharmacy, and do Cody Coyotes all at the same time. So since the Cody Coyote job was late at night and I would sometimes get home at 1 in the morning and I was just dragging, I quit that one and I just did Walmart pharmacy. And then when I graduated college and moved back home, then I got my first job at a small computer company. It was a network integration company, kind of like a managed service company called MC Squared Microsystems. And I did that for about a year and a half. Then I went to Shine Pharmaceutical and I was there for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then I went to BASF and here we are today. So I have been working in some capacity since elementary school. That's the work ethic that my parents instilled in me. What is the least favorite job you had? It was asbestos removal at the Georgia Pacific paper mill. So if you think about when you do asbestos removal, you have to build a containment. You build a wooden frame around the pipes that you want to remove asbestos from. And these are, huge steam pipes that are like this big. And they're just so hot. They're so hot. And you build a containment around them with wood, and then you cover the whole thing with plastic, and you make it airtight. And you go in there either with a full Tyvek suit with a respirator on, full face respirator, or supplied air. So you have a hose that supplies the air. And think of the hottest day in the summer, and you have to wear a full Tyvek suit with a respirator and go up into your attic and stay up there for 3 or 4 hours doing physical work like scrubbing pipes and cutting asbestos off of pipes and bagging it and stuff. It was the most ungodly, horrific job I have ever had in my life. And I did that for only a month or two, and that was the motivation to come home and to go to college because I knew I never wanted to do backbreaking, god awful physical labor ever again. I mean, that was it. So that was the least favorite job I ever had. Working on the farm when I was in high school, that was probably the next one down, dealing with the bugs and the mosquitoes and the gnats, and then working in the hot sun, picking and planting stuff in fields. I mean, I was literally out in the fields bending over, weeding and picking and stuff like that. Had a great tan, no doubt had a great tan, but that was pretty rough. Next question, is there a job or profession your parents wanted you to pursue? What was it? And I said, no, my parents wanted me to be happy and to be able to support myself. So at the end of the day, if I decided that I wanted to go into the oil burner business, I wanted to be an electrician, a plumber, if I wanted to do blue collar, my parents would be like, fine, are you happy? Do you enjoy that? Can you support yourself? Can you live on your own? So they never pushed me to do anything specific, but they did push me to say, you're not going to sit on the couch the rest of your life. You're going to make something of yourself, and you do that by working hard and finding a job, etc. When people ask you what profession you are or were in, my response is IT. I'm an IT professional, right? I mean, I could go into details, whether it's back-end infrastructure support or server support or enterprise architecture, different roles that I've had at BASF, but they all boil down to I'm an IT professional. How did you get into this career? So I was always interested in technology, computers. I was always interested in that. And when I was in the Army, I worked on equipment that was used for secure communications. That was my job. And you had to fix things. So I have a passion for figuring out why or how something is broken and fixing it. So when I got out of the Army, um, and I went to college, I remember going to DeVry and saying, "What kind of programs do you have?" And when they said telecommunications management, and they're like, "It's voice networks and it's data networks and it's computer networking." I'm like, "That sounds perfect. That sounds exactly what I'm looking for. Fixing computers, fixing computer networks, all that." So that's kind of how I got into the career. Take what I like to do plus Army experience, and it was a perfect segue. Um, what were the best parts of this profession? Well, one, you get to work in an office. So, if I don't want to work in the heat and outside and sweating all day, so it was perfect for that. I know, let me see, I know what hard work is, and I don't want to have a blue collar labor job. So, you know, I knew what I wanted and I know what I didn't want. And I love the challenge of fixing things. Looking back on my career, especially even MC squared, even Shine, even BSF, I can tell story upon story upon story about a really, excuse me, a juicy technical problem that people could not figure out how to do. And they came looking to me like, "Mike, can you fix it?" And I may not have been the smartest guy in the world, but I could think through a problem, break it down into little chunks, and then analyze, well, what is supposed to happen when you do this, when you click this button, or when this program launches, or when you're trying to do this, what is supposed to happen? And then through various troubleshooting techniques, solve it. One time they were working on a massive PC rollout in BSF, and down in Mexico, the staging facility that they would get computers from Dell. They would have to stage them with our image and put our stuff on it, and then send them and deliver them out to the end users. Well, the staging process was not working, and for weeks nobody could figure out why it wasn't working. How come they can't get a network connection? How come this thing doesn't work? How come this doesn't work? And it was like on a Thursday afternoon, and they called me and they're like, "Mike, can you be in Mexico on Monday?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I had a passport. So literally, like, the next day I was booking a flight and I was on a plane down to Mexico City, and I went to the staging area. And again, I wasn't the smartest guy in the world, but I have the tenacity to just keep digging and to call people that I know are responsible for something. So if I thought the firewall wasn't working, I'd get the firewall team involved, and they'd say, "It's not us, it's not the firewall." I'm like, "Yeah, it really is. It is you. And let's work on it." And eventually I would prove to them that, yeah, the firewall's the problem. And then they would dig deeper and they'd find the issue. So, um, really, what the question was? Oh, uh, what question was I on? What aspects did you like about? Okay, yeah, corporate policies. Oh, what aspects did you or do you like or dislike? So, I like working in office. I know what I didn't want to do. I love the challenge of fixing things. Okay, the next question was, what aspects do you dislike? Corporate policies. I don't do corporate policies very well. I can be very corporate and diplomatic and, all of those things, but it's not my forte. I'd rather tell you you're an idiot and just be straight up about it. And, I don't do corporate policies very well. Not having the ability to fix something outside of my area of expertise. That's one of the things that always bothered me, because computer networking and the stuff that I do is very complex. Think of it this way: you have your phone or your computer, and you open up Amazon.com to buy something. Well, from your computer, all the way through from your computer to the wireless access point to the router to the internet to Amazon to there's hundreds of different things that can go wrong along that path to enable something to work. And here you are, if you're in BSF or another company and you're just responsible for mobile phones, as an example, well, you're not responsible for the network and you're not responsible for something else. So you can troubleshoot and find where you think the problem is, but if you don't have access rights into those systems to really like dig into the logs and look at configurations and stuff, then you're kind of stuck. And I can tell you the countless times I got involved in a problem and I'd start troubleshooting it. And I'd say, it's the network, it's the firewall, it's the authentication, it's something else that I don't have the ability to actually fix. So then I'd have to pull in a different team, and of course their first response is, no, it's not us, it's not us, it's somebody else. And I'd have to prove to them that it was them, that their system of responsibility is broken. And then eventually, once they believed me and they started looking into it, they could find the problem and fix it. So that's just one thing I dislike about my job or the area that I'm in. Who was the best boss you ever had, and why were they such a good manager? So I actually had two that I put. The first one was David and Andrea, who owned Package and Wrap. So if you go back to a previous video and I tell the story about how they left me in charge, they were a great boss because they trusted me, right? To be a good leader and a good manager, you have to trust the people that are working for you. And if you can do that, then you basically empower them to do the very best that they can. And you know that, all right, if I screw up, if I make a mistake, I'm not going to get fired, I'm not going to get screamed at. They trust me, and part of that trust says, mistakes happen. And then my first boss at BSF, his name was Murdad Abedin. He was Iranian. He was Persia, is what he would call it. But he was very dress right dress, very no nonsense, very. He was an interesting guy, and I liked him because you knew exactly where you stood with him. If he had a problem with you, he would come right out and tell you. And you knew exactly where you stood. You knew if you were good or if you were bad or if you had an issue. I like that, being very straightforward and direct. He would never go behind your back. He trusted the people that worked for him. Oh, yeah, I like that. What are some of your work and career related achievements that you were proudest of? Being well respected and well liked at BSF. I think if you ask anybody in the company, especially in IT, they know who I am, and I'm well known and well respected. I'm known to be the guy who you can always call for help. If I don't know how to help you, I will find somebody who can, and I have the dogged determination to solve problems, and I generally will not give up. I'm pretty good. I will stay on top of it until I fix something. I love tons of technical. I have tons of technical problems that I've been able to solve over my career. Like I said, I've got tons of stories of just really juicy technical things that people wrote off, and they're like, "Ah, it's not me. It's not our department," and it landed on my desk, and I worked it until I solved it. So I'm really proud of those things. I went to Mexico at the last minute to get a staging area working. I have been asked by BSF to do a lot of things, and I've been able to advance my career because of my hard work, a little bit of skill, some luck. Personality never hurts. So, yeah, I think I've done pretty well for myself combining all of those attributes. So that's all I've got for today. The next section is called Dad Trivia, and I will go through. Oh, I love this question. What is your morning routine? Oh, I can't wait to explain that. And one thing you'll know about me, I am a creature of habit. I do the same thing every day. I eat the same lunch, the same breakfast. I have a schedule, I have a routine, and I like that routine. So I will go through the next section. With that, I wish you a wonderful day, a great afternoon, great week, month, whatever, and I will talk to you again real soon. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye.